Breathe deep and listen well. Tonight, Hex and Harmony rides the currents of air, the element of thought, word, and whisper, the unseen force that carries dreams, stirs ideas, and binds spell to song. From ancient invocations to modern magic, we'll follow the wind's path through mind and mystery alike. Open your lungs, open your mind. The magic of air is about to take flight.
Welcome back to Hex and Harmony. Today we rise with the element of air, the unseen mover, the whisper of spirit, the breath of all becoming. Air is thought before it becomes word, intention before it becomes action. It is the realm of intellect, clarity, communication, inspiration. Associated with the east, with dawn, with spring, air is the first breath of possibility. It stirs the winds of change, and carries our prayers, our spells, and our stories into the world. Its tools are the wand and the feather. Its allies are birds, breezes, incense, smoke, and every sudden insight that feels like it came from somewhere higher. In this episode, we'll explore how air moves through mind, through the voice, and the spirit, and how we can work with it to sharpen our focus, to speak our truth, and to invoke transformation through the power of thought and word. But before we blow the doors open on air magic, I wanted a quick minute to tell you about my book. I'm in my veins. I'm so excited to get to finally tell you that it is available for pre-order right now. And the official release date is September the 30th. It's going to be available as an ebook and a paperback to purchase, or you can read it on KU if you're a member of Kindle Unlimited. It is a paranormal romance full of vampires, spell work, and a love potion that sets everything spiraling. So if you love your stories with fangs, feelings, and a little danger, you'll want to check it out. You can go to teganluad.com, which is my author website, for all of the details. And don't forget to subscribe to witchmarked.substack.com for behind the scenes magic and new release updates. So I'm really excited to be able to share that with everybody. And now let's talk about the magic of air. Hello, everybody.
First of all, that it is obvious you are a writer, because the way you just say your intro and everything, it's just very authory and writery. And I'm like, yeah, I like words and everything, but I ain't that good.
Well, it's also air. I mean, air is communication and it is language.
Well, even when we're not talking about air, yours just always sounds that way.
You know, always.
Habit. I have been so focused on being an author the past couple of weeks.
Oh, I'm not complaining. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's obvious that you are.
I am always writing. Even when I'm not writing, I'm writing.
So if you ever have imposter syndrome, just know that it is definitely imposter syndrome and not the truth.
Oh, gosh. Every author suffers with imposter syndrome. Trust me. It's a scary, horrible thing, but it's something you just have to get over and say, so what if I'm an imposter? And just do it, you know? So what does air mean to you guys, magically, personally, or symbolically?
When I think of air, I think of like breath and the magic of the wind and our breath and breath work and that kind of thing. That's what usually comes to my mind first.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bailey?
I also think of wind and inspiration. Sometimes some people don't recognize that inspiration is also in taking of breath. So it's
Yes.
also being mindful and bringing something forth from you, but it's also you being able to take in the breath, the air, the wind.
Mm-hmm. I think just my first reaction when I think of air is thinking about ideas and the mind and communication. At the time we're recording this right now, Mercury is in retrograde.
Oh, God.
And we're all feeling it. And Mercury is tied with a lot of the air elements as far as communication and that kind of stuff. And I can feel its influence. You have to, as a spiritual person, you have to learn how to ride those retrogrades, because if you didn't, for 9 weeks out of the year, almost half the year, you'd be screwed. So you have to learn how to ride those retrogrades and how to use them effectively rather than just cling them every day. So just while we're here on the subject, in Mercury retrograde is a good time for editing if you're an author or a writer or any kind of creative or academic. Whenever Mercury retrograde has you down, just remember anything that starts with RE is something that would work very well during Mercury retrograde, like rewriting, rereading, redoing, revisiting. Things like that is one way to help take the power of Mercury retrograde and turn it back into your favor.
I tend to think of it as a cosmic edit, or a time for a cosmic edit to just reflect on things and rework them in all aspects of our life.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned it's like 9 weeks out of the year, or however long it is. It is a lot. There's like 3 or 4 every year. And there are several weeks at a time. And sometimes we get this big idea that it's a horrible thing, that everything's going to go wrong. And yeah, things can go wrong. But really and truly, things can go wrong any time of the year. It doesn't have to be during a planetary retrograde.
Right.
But when you have this time that's a retrograde, we're more heightened to recognize when things go wrong and whatever.
Right. I think a lot of time, something is always in retrograde, right?
Yeah,
there's very rarely a moment when something is not in retrograde. But I think we focus on Mercury so much because it is the fastest moving planet and it happens more frequently than the others, and we expect things to go wrong.
Right.
And they do. So if we learn to, embrace it and work it in some way, maybe it will lose some of its power over us.
And I actually taught a course a couple years ago about this, and I have it available. I'll link it in the show notes, and we'll also link your book, Tegan, too, so people can get that. But I know when this actually comes out, it won't be retrograde, but there'll be another one coming up not long after.
I know.
It's a sad thing. won't be a Mercury retrograde when it comes out, but it'll be a good time to start getting ready for the next one because
Right.
it won't be long.
Won't be long.
And speaking of Mercury retrograde, we're back after a huge glitch with my microphone. So we can try to pick up where we left off. I don't even remember where we left off. So are you guys okay over there?
I'm good.
Okay. So where do you feel air's presence most strongly in your practice or your life?
Bailey, you go first on that one.
Okay. See, in my life, I feel it. Because I try and connect with all the elements in doing rituals and stuff. So it's a constant presence. So, I mentioned that I feel it is, air and wind. So, you take time and moments to be mindful, feel the breeze, feel the air, see things moving. So that, and I am an incense fiend, so I'm always lighting incense. So always part of my day with incense, watching the smoke rise up.
I feel like for me, my whole life right now is just basically happening because of the air element. I feel like everything is just floating along and it's just going from one thing to another without a whole lot of direction from me, which is weird because I try to have direction and I try to be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm a massive planner, but I feel like no matter how much I try to plan things, I feel like I'm floating by the seat of my pants kind of thing, which is very airy for me.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. It could also be, I don't want to invoke any other retrograde planet right now, but Saturn being in retrograde is something that just like it blows up all of your structure
Right.
in your life, and so things just start feeling kind of unstructured, and it's hard to follow a schedule and things like that. Could be a result of Saturn retrograde, and that lasts for months and months and months and months. So
And it's like I do have some structure, like I have to go to work on certain days of the week, every day, every week, blah, blah,
right.
like clockwork, and I do that. But the general overarching plans I have, like I'm going to get through this period of my whatever, and then I'm going to move on to this. It's like, nope, we're going to just mash everything up and everything's going to just blow on a breeze and smoke here and floating there, and it's just round and round and up and down on the breeze. And it's just like whatever. I have plans and some ideas, and the things are happening with those plans and ideas, but not in any way that I would think or want it to go. It just is happening when it happens and how it happens.
Right. It's just like a whirlwind.
And the only earth thing, I know we talked about earth already and everything, but because I am an earth person, like born under the astrological earth sign, I like a lot of structure. I'm not a huge play in the dirt kind of girl. We've been there, done that. But I do like structure. So the airy fairy, let's just let it happen as it happens, is not my cup of tea.
Maybe that's the lesson you need to learn right now, is how to deal with those things.
I mean,
yeah.
I make plans and life's like, nope. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Because otherwise I'm fighting it and I don't want to do that.
I think air is very present in my life. and in my practice just because of the whole writer thing. So I'm always trying to think of ideas. I'm trying to communicate with people, even in this podcast. That's also an airy thing. And, I'm writing, I'm communicating, I'm trying to come up with ideas. The creativity itself is more fire, which we'll talk about maybe next episode, I think.
Yep, I think so.
But just the thinking process is very much air, so I use that every day, all the time. And specifically in your magic, I know Baylit said that she is a big incense person.
Yep.
Are there any other ways specifically in your magic that you work with air?
Sound, music, chimes, bells. I'm not much of a singer, but I like to listen to other people sing. I say I can't carry a tune in a bucket with a lid on it, so you don't want me to sing.
Yeah, I cannot carry a tune either, but I'm always singing, not just in my practice, but, around the house. I'll just find myself, if I'm cooking or doing housework or whatever, I'm always singing something, and I'll get like stuck on a song in my head. And I can't let other people hear me because I do sound terrible. I'm not a singer, that's for sure. But yeah, I am always singing. And I do love the incense and the bells whenever the energy is just kind of feeling murky or stagnant or whatever. Just a chime or a bell will clear it out in a very good way. And I love the wind chimes outside. It kind of makes me feel like the wind is speaking to me because I love to hear the wind chime.
I do too.
Outside.
Yeah.
So, some ways that we can recognize when we're out of balance with air energy.
When things are too structured.
Yeah, that's one way.
That's when you don't have enough air.
Yeah, and
when you have too much air, I guess things aren't structured at all.
Right.
Yeah,
you're all over the place.
Yeah,
Too stuck in your head, and stuff goes round and round and round and round and round.
yes, that's true. One way to recognize when you're out of balance with air is when you're overthinking things.
Yep.
Or when even anxiety is like a disconnection from the air energy. Anxiety, disconnection from truth is a symptom of being out of balance with air energy. When you can't make up your mind, you keep going back and forth and you can't make up your mind, that's not in balance with air. It's either not enough or too much. When you just can't decide and can't make up your mind, can't keep your focus on, a task or an idea or whatever. Let's see. Another thing that is very, very airy is breath work and conscious breath. So one of my questions I wrote down to ask you guys was, what role does breath play in your what role does breath, as opposed to air, play in your spiritual or magical practice?
When I do breath work specifically to ground myself, and especially you mentioned anxiety, when I'm dealing with a lot of stress or anxiety, I will focus on my breath and my breathing and bring it into a pattern or a rhythm and count my breaths. And that brings me back.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it sounds counterintuitive. I mean, it sounds the opposite to say that air can ground you, but it can
It
when
really
you're
can.
using your breath to calm your mind and your body, your physiological processes. You know, if you stop and take slow, deep breaths, you can calm your heart rate and things like that. So it's pretty important.
And I think the distinction there is when you're dealing with anxiety or high levels of stress or whatever, you've got too much air going on and you don't have focus and your mind is just floating around with no direction aimlessly. And that's where that feeling comes from. But when you focus on the air and the breath, then that calms things down and brings your mind back into an alignment with that specific element.
Hmm.
So it's not that air is in and of itself not grounding. It's just when we have way too much of it and we've lost connection with everything else, then it can be a problem. But then it's like any other element. If you have too much fire, you're going to get burnt. If you have too much water, you're going to drown. If you have too much earth, you're going to get buried.
Hmm.
So it's not any one of them is going to hurt us, but if we have too much of that one thing to the exclusion of anything else, then that's where a problem comes in.
Right.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to balance the elements in your life.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think air and breath also become important. You know, in your incantations, that's another time you're calling on the element of air to speak your incantation or to speak your truth.
Right.
And I mean, all of those things, a lot of times we you know, I mean, we don't sit down and break it down that way, but that is another way that the air comes into our magical practice.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, which deities, spirits, or ancestors do you associate with air and why? If you have any favorite deities or spirits, or we'll even lump this in with my next question, which is a myth, a folk tale, or a magical story that feels aligned with air.
I don't work with any air entities.
I don't either, but I guess like sometimes when I think of like the jinn from Middle Eastern type stories, that's a fire elemental, but also has some air in it because they
Yeah.
float, like
Right.
go through the air, but are also fire and burn. So, I mean, that's what I tend to think of because I don't work with anything specific with air.
Right.
Okay. Well, I mean, working with air deities and myths and things like that, any kind of sky god or a storm god would be considered related to air. So like, I mean, even Jupiter is related to air because he is a sky god, and Thor is a storm god. And so he, you know, he may not be the first one you think of when you think of air, but he is, I mean, related to it because he can kill the storm.
Yeah. I use air crystals, but I don't deal with air entities per se.
I'm the same.
Okay. And if you call in the quarters in ritual, they're also linked to the four winds. So that's another way that air is present in ritual.
Yeah, I do that, but not particularly pertaining to any specific. But when I do the full out things, I do call them four quarters, call in air as one of the elements.
Yeah, and when I think of the ancestors related to air, it connects me to the thinkers and the storytellers and the ones who kept oral traditions alive. I mean, especially in Welsh cultures, their stories were orally transferred. They told stories to pass their stories down. That's why we don't have a whole lot of books and literature that we can go to. We only have a small handful, and all of them are basically based on the same two books that were written by the scribes or whatever back in the Middle Ages. But because they were storytellers, that's how they kept their traditions is by telling their stories verbally.
Right.
So I think that's all I got. That's all my questions. We went through them pretty quickly.
I think we've covered a lot, though.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, I can't remember what we covered the other day before my microphone went crazy.
We talked a lot about Mercury retrograde.
We probably jinxed
That's why
ourselves talking about Mercury.
That's why you had that glitch. I do believe.
I know. I think I invoked it. That's a little scary. But yeah, so I mean, in summation, air is wisdom, it's truth, it is communication, it's travel also, and correspondences can be things like sound, chimes, and music, singing. Anything using your breath or your voice or your brain is going to be aligned with air.
Yep.
So I guess that will do it for our short little episode number 16 on the air.
Okay.
I think it's a good one.
Yep.
All right, everybody, be sure to come back to us on the next phase of the moon when we will talk about fire.
Yep.
It'll be a good one, too.
Will.
Yep. Until then, we will see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.